Recording in progress.
Good morning. It is June 22nd, 2021, and this is the Mission Valley SELPA Regional Policy Board meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone here today. And if we could please begin with introductions. If we don't mind starting with our board members and superintendent. And CJ, may I ask you to begin?
Absolutely. CJ Kamick, Superintendent, Fremont Unified School District.
I believe that we have Ariel Dolowich as well as Annette Heldman substituting in for Mark Triplett, Dr. Mark Triplett and Dr. John Thompson. So Ariel, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Sure, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Ariel Dolowich. I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning in Newark Unified.
I guess I'll go next. Good morning, everyone. My name is Annette Heldman. I am the Chief Business Officer for New Haven Unified, and I'm here for Dr. Thompson.
Thank you, Ariel and Annette. And our board members that we have online here, I believe that we have Eliza Martinez who just joined us. Okay, and do we have Michael Gonzalez online here yet?
Yes, I'm right here.
Great.
Good morning, everyone. Michael Gonzalez, trustee, New Haven Unified School District.
Fantastic. That gives us a quorum and we can go ahead and begin. Can we also, from everyone else online, do you mind quickly introducing yourselves?
Hi, good morning. My name is Elisa Martinez and I'm a trustee from Newark Unified.
Fran English, Director for Fremont Unified.
Dr. Jan Hamilton, Director of Special Education with Newark Unified School District. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, I'm Catherine Ingham Waters. I'm the Executive Director of Human Resources for Newark Unified.
Good morning, my name is Sarah Kapler. I'm the Director of Special Services for New Haven Unified.
Good morning, my name is Robbie Pascual, Director of Accounting for Fremont Unified School District and for the Mission Valley SELPA.
Fantastic. All right, thank you very much. I see also that Larry Sweeney has also joined us. So we thank you very much, everyone, for being here today. We realize that this is a bit of an odd time of the year where we're kind of in between sessions and many of us have begun our extended school year programs. So again, I appreciate everyone being here and their time, and we will expeditiously run through our agenda. In terms of our acknowledgements, I would like to give special appreciation to Ms. Bobby Platt, who has been working very arduously with us as we've completed the annual service plan for the SELPA, and also Robert Pascal, as he's worked very diligently and accurately to develop the annual budget plan, which we'll be reviewing today as we move forward. Public input guidelines are on our agenda with a link, as well as a review of the SELPA. I think we will skip our review of the SELPA since we have done that at our previous 3 regional policy board meetings. So our first item on the agenda is number 2, and that would be the minutes from our March 23rd regional policy board meeting. If you haven't yet already, you may want to click on that link, and we can go ahead and review those minutes to make sure that you have had a chance to look at them before we also look to approve those. If anybody needs more time to review the minutes, let me know. If not, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved, Michael Gonzalez.
Second,
Thank you, Michael. And who was our second, CJ?
yes.
Thank you. All right, so our board members that will be voting will be Annette, Ariel, CJ, as well as Michael, Larry, and Eliza. If you could please indicate by a motion with your hand if you are approving of the minutes.
Karen, I would like to abstain since I was not at the previous meeting.
Thank you, Annette. All right, it looks like then we have everyone with the exception of Eliza or Annette.
It's Elisa, sorry.
I'm
It's
so
Elisa.
sorry, Elisa.
No worries.
Yes. Okay. All right, we will then now move on to our next agenda item. And we have a series of budget items to go through, and Mr. Pascal will help me on those. So Robbie, do you mind reviewing our 2021 Mission Valley Administrative Unit operating budget final?
So what's in front of you is the administrative unit projected operating budget for fiscal year 2021. So we have the budget of $286,000 projected to be received with almost $71,000 from carryover from prior year. We have our different expenditures, the SELPA director, the clerical support and accounting director stipends that is projected until June 30th. So we are a little bit, I did make some minor changes off by a few dollars and updated the budget based on the actual expenditures. And it's more on the benefit side that it changed. You would see the budget for the different operating expenses and the actuals and encumbrances as of June 10. So also under other operating expenditure unallocated of $20,714, that's still unallocated. So if none of these expenditures or none of this budget is going to be spent by June 30th, then that would be carried forward. If you can scroll down a little bit.
Mhm.
So we have an admin fee of 8%. So that is based on actual expenditures. So right now, this $37,000 or almost $38,000 would be recalculated because it's based on budget and not on actual expenditures. So that would be recalculated. And then, of course, the reserve of 1%. So overall, our total projected expenditures is $212,000 and a possible carryover or more. There's probably going to be more carryover of a good $75,000. Now, there's still only a few days from June 10th when I prepared this report to June 30th, and we'll probably see more invoices and hopefully that would cover everything until the end of the fiscal year. And that ends my report.
So on this year, Robbie, we can see that there were a number of areas in which the projected funds were not used, which then resulted in that close to $75,000 balance that will typically, as we've done, be sent back to the different districts.
Yes.
And typically we'll do that in the fall after we have the final invoices for all the expenses.
Yes, until we do our year-end closing, that would be determined during that time. And you're correct that we would be, if the board approves it, or the regional policy board approves it, then it would be sent back to the different districts.
Do we have any questions from the board regarding or any of those attending this meeting around the final projections for the administrative unit operating budget?
I have a question.
Mhm.
So it appears that the unallocated, which is about 70,000, is more or less, as of the encumbrances of June 30, is more or less the same amount that we anticipate to be unspent, right? So there's an action that would allocate that to the member districts. Is that what you just mentioned?
Yes. So oh, go ahead, Robbie. I'm sorry.
Yes, there's an action with the board if they would like to allocate that based on prior year percentage of ADA to the district members, to the SELPA members.
Okay. Thank you.
So do I have a motion to approve the 2021 administrative unit operating budget?
This is Larry. I move to approve.
Thank you, Larry. Is there a second?
I'll second. Oh, Elisa?
Thank you, Elisa. Okay. All those in favor, please indicate with a thumbs up. Do we have any abstaining? Okay, Elisa is abstaining. And do we have any that are nays?
No, I said yes. Sorry. I'm showing my hand and I'm giving a little emoji too.
Bobby is recording our votes. Bobby, do you have all those?
Yes, I have 6 ayes.
Great. Okay. Moving on to number 4, we have the Mission Valley SELPA revised allocations for 2021. Robbie, do you mind leading us through that, please?
No problem, ma'am. So I'll give a summary on our report, and nothing has changed for our funding rate. It's still $625 per ADA. ADA that we're using is from 2019-20. There is no deficit factor, and the last special ed property tax that we received from Alameda County Office of Ed is dated April 19. So there would be another final number that we're going to receive from Alameda County Office of Ed, and we call it 2021 annual. So this is just a P2 annual, and we're going to get the actual annual sometimes in July or August, usually late part of August when we get that number from Alameda County Office of Ed. And we, when SELPA members receive that, they use that number for their final number to calculate LCFF or for their fundings for special ed property tax. We have also we have received all of the grant award letters that we're expecting, except for the mental health allocation plan part B, which is the federal part of the mental health allocation. We have not received the grant award letter for that grant. So that's the only one that we're missing. All of the grants, local assistance, we finally received them. It was very late when we received this, so but it's good, perfect timing. So if you can scroll down some more, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also we've included some grants that the administrative unit is, or Fremont Unified School District is administering for the SELPA. So that is the early intervention, the alternative dispute resolution program, workability, infant discretionary funds, and of course, Special Olympics, which we don't have this year. If you can scroll down some more, Karen, on the first exhibit. So this one is a funding exhibit for 2021. Similar, very similar to the exhibit that's coming from California Department of Ed. So you would see that um, we're doing the highest ADA that we're being funded is from prior uh, second prior year, which is the 50,743 ADA. So whichever is the highest of the past 3 years, current year, past 2 years, is the ADA that we're going to get funded. However, we do allocate our funding based on current year allocation on the AB 602, even though we are being funded by the highest of the prior year. Um, Section B is just stating, okay, how much is our ADA and how much is our base rate, which is $625. And then Section C would our property tax for special ed. This special ed property tax is different from the regular property tax that the school district is receiving. Um, we don't have Section D, sections. Uh, we have the program specialist regionalized services apportionment of $835,000. Um, $836,000 or almost $837,000. That is basically the total funding that we get for the AU and other services that we provide. Out of home care is $63,000, and Section I, if you can scroll down some more, there you go. Section I is the apportionment summary. How much we're getting for the AB 602 for program specialists, low incidence. Low incidence increased significantly this year, and each district has their own allocation, and they need to spend that much for low incidence. And the total is $30.1 million overall for AB 602.
Robbie, I'll interject just for a second. Our low incidence funds almost tripled. So that is a significant amount more. And low incidence in the world of special ed is defined as money that is to be spent on students who are deaf, blind, or orthopedically impaired. And that needs to be on their IEP for those funds to be expended for them. And again, these monies can be spent on a variety of Braille transcribing. It could be for equipment, an FM system used for a student. It could be a stander used for a child with an orthopedic impairment. So these monies are to be used for our students with low incidence disabilities. Robbie, did you want to go into the distribution exhibit now?
Yes. So section 1 to section 5 are all of the AB 602. So the 30.1 million that you see here is equal to the 30.1 million that we did on the other exhibit from our SELPA funding. So, and the breakdown would be 20.6 million for Fremont, 6.3 million for New Haven, and Newark is 3.3 million dollars, total of 30.1. And you would see the percentage. I have a total under after line 5 of that, and then the rest are the special ed property tax, the local assistance grant, the different grants from section 6 to section 8 are our other grants. And it is on line 9, the mental health allocation, that's the one, the $591,000, that is still a projection because we have not received the grant award letter.
So a couple things I want to point out here too, as Robbie's going over these figures. We were apportioned this money based on an ADA of 50,743, whereas our actual ADA was 49,968. So almost 800 students less this year. So if you look on the item number 1, where it says current year ADA, and Fremont is virtually 34%, New Haven 10.4%, and then Newark 5.4%. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Robbie, but these figures were taken from a census that was done in October, in the beginning of October. So once again, that just kind of reiterates for all of our districts how very, very important it is to make sure that students are present and accounted for in that October count, because that's the numbers that are used not only for money coming into the district, but how we then apportion that between the 3 districts.
So Karen, the one for October is called the old seabeds count. This ADA is different calculation. So these are our attendance, and usually attendance for P2 is any attendance from July 1st or start of school until April 15,
Okay,
on or
thank
before
you.
April 15.
Thanks for that correction, Robbie. Okay, and then did you want to continue on this one, Robbie, going down?
Yeah, let me just look. And so most of our grants is either being allocated by ADA or pupil count. So one thing that I will be doing after this is, because I didn't have the December 2020 count, and I would probably request from you, Karen, the December 2020 count. But what I've been using it here is this December 2019. So it's the data 2 years back. So I need to update this, and after probably the next meeting that we have in our board meeting, we would have this updated. So there's still some going to be changes, but this is still a good good estimate or projection for fiscal year 2021 for 2019. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. This is for 2021. So this is, so we use the, I thought we were talking about the 21-22 already. So this is the correct number for, or correct allocation for the pupil count for 2021. Sorry about that.
And so as Robbie has outlined, the monies that we typically get just directed back to each of the respective LEAs, with the exception of some of our grants. And those include, as Robbie was talking about, our infant funding. And that's because our infant program is provided to the entire SELPA. Our transition partnership program, which is also provided to the entire SELPA, as well as the monies that we get for alternative dispute resolution, which are also provided to each district within the entire SELPA. But those are administered by Fremont as the district administering those grants.
And that ends my report.
Great. All right, thank you, Robbie, for the distribution for 2021. So do we have a motion to approve that?
This is Larry, move to approve.
Thank you, Larry. Do we have a second?
This is CJ, I'll second.
Thank you, CJ. All right. If all those in favor can indicate by please raising your hand.
Karen, is there room for questions?
Absolutely. I'm so sorry, Annette. Yeah, let me, yeah. Take any questions?
The substantive increase in low incidence, Robbie, is that just a 1 year or is that, first of all, it's effective 2021, right? The current year. That's not just a 1 year increase. Is it ongoing?
It is ongoing.
What's driving that increase? Not that I'm saying no to it. I'm just curious. It's such a substantive increase.
The increase was based on the rate.
I see.
Yes.
So oh, go ahead.
My understanding was that the state legislature was looking to direct funds to special education, and they felt that that was a population within the field of students receiving IEPs, which had the most significant needs. And that was one of the rationales for the increase in that amount.
So is that increase just from the last time this was calculated to now? In other words, it's a catch up. It sounds like a catch up of something at the state level.
I could not recall. I think it was already projected way back when.
Okay, we're just now seeing the adjustment in this schedule.
Yes.
Got it.
Now, yes.
Okay.
So the increase is a good $2,600
Okay.
on the rate from 466.
Yeah,
to
it's a big increase.
3,000.
Okay. And then the other question, and this might be for a different forum, I'm just curious if the other districts are able to use this particular line of funding because,
Right.
I mean, I don't know if New Haven is the same as others, but we don't say no to any request, but if it's so restricted to those certain things, Karen, that you were talking about earlier, it doesn't always get used, and yet we have a huge contribution to the main program. So just curious what others are doing with the leftover money. And if that's a different conversation, or I can call you, reach out to you later, that's okay too. I don't want to waste people's time.
So Annette, this is Sarah. I totally understand. And I honestly think this is an example of the legislators listening to us without really understanding. So when they hear there's not enough money for special education and they look at our neediest staff and that's our low incidence, each kid is quite expensive, but it is low incidence, right? We have the fewest amount of kids at each district in this category. And so I agree with you. I mean, I don't know if the other districts are spending it all, but I suspect that we have years where we spend a lot and then we rolls over and then we have years where we have to wait. And it's because we don't have that many. Each kid is expensive, but they don't come along that often.
Right. Okay, well, we can talk more.
No, I'm interested in hearing as well from the other districts, but
okay.
I just wanted to sort of explain that it's called low incidence because we do not have that many students with that need.
Yeah.
And Annette, I would add that that's a very good question, and that we may have historically been providing services to our students with low incidence, supplementing that with other kinds of funds from our special ed budget that now may be able to be redirected. And I will also try to do some more research in allowable expenses under that category of LI.
Great. Thanks. This is all very helpful.
Okay. All right. So then if we can kind of move back, it looks like Larry has made a motion to approve this allocation, and we have CJ as a second. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any abstentions we can voice? And do we have any nays? All right, the motion passes unanimously. Now we are on to number 5 of our agenda for today, and this is going to be the 21-22 Mission Valley SELPA Administrative Unit Operating Budget. And Robbie, may I ask you to guide us through this?
Yes. So, on agenda item number 5, there are 2 items in here. One is a 21-22 proposed AU budget, and the other one is a 21-22 AU budget version 1. So what you have in front of you right now is the version 1 that has updated budget or proposed budget for the different expenditure items that we have for the AU. One of those changes is the SELPA director stipend. It went, the proposed is from, the change is from $45,000 to $48,000. Second is the clerical support, which is from $3,500 to $4,000. And the third one is the accounting director from $4,500 to $5,000. For those three items, of course, the stipend and the benefits um, has an increase of how much would that? $4,000 plus benefits. The other one that we made some changes is the, if I remember it correctly, Karen, that is on the CCS, California Children's Services. It was previously budget on the original version was $3,000, and here on the proposed is $1,500.
Right.
And anything that is the increases is taken out from the unallocated uh, portion of the budget, and the other expenditure line item remain the same. There's an admin fee of 8%, and there's a reserve of 1% for the Mission Valley SELPA. I don't know, Karen, if you want to add something else.
I would just say that we are including the $10,000 for Special Olympics because we are entering into a contract with Special Olympics for the 21-22 school year. Yeah. Any questions that we have on the projected operating budget for 21-22?
Yeah, this is CJ. I did have a couple of questions if people wouldn't mind. One of my questions is up front, is there anything that prevents us at a later point in time from adjusting our 21-22 budget later in the year?
Absolutely not. And we frequently have done that when we see a potential need for an increase or a decrease. For example, I think it was 3 years ago, we had some integration fees that were more significant for data migration between SACE and the different districts. So we definitely had to amend the budget at that point. So there is opportunity for that at each of the regional policy board meetings.
And also the SACE signature, 50 cents per special ed enrollment. And also when we do allocate the carryover from prior year, that is the regional board prerogative.
So I appreciate that, and I just want to share that it would be my feeling, and I'm only one person. I respect that, and this may not be popular, but it would be my feeling that I would want to wait on an increase in the stipend and benefit amounts. The reason being is I think that we have a lot that's in front of us from a fiscal standpoint. Some districts in the SELPA may have finished their budget adoption process. Fremont Unified's budget is for final adoption in our Thursday night board meeting. And I'd like to have a little more discussion at some point about the percentage overall of the stipend increases, because they seem to be at different percentages based on the stipends. And I'd like to maybe understand how we calculated the increase in terms of, when we look at increasing compensation, whether it's a stipend or salary, oftentimes we do that through the lens of a percentage. And for our districts and our LEAs, that's generally happens relative to the cost of 1%. I recognize that that may not be the case for stipends for this, but I think percentage wise, we still may want to discuss that a little bit further. So this isn't necessarily the question, but I just wanted to explain my thinking. I think that if we are going to increase these stipends, my sole preference would be that it happens a little bit later in the year where we may know more about what's happening with other represented labor groups within the SELPA.
Okay, any other discussion around that?
Can I just ask a clarifying question, please?
Mm-hmm.
Robbie, assuming I'm following this correctly, it represents an 11% increase from 2021 using your encumbrances through June 30, right? From 212,000 for 2021, assuming those estimates stay the way they are, to a proposed budget of 236,000, and that includes the increases. That's one clarification. The other thing is this nets the carryover, because I don't see them here anymore. This nets those 3 unallocated carryover with the assumption that they will be redirected back to the member districts.
So in regards to your first one is the allocation for the SELPA AU budget is part of the calculation of the exhibit that was previously presented, or not previously presented, that will be presented then on the next item. So this $236,000 is part of that calculation. The Your second question is the carryover. The carryover is not expected to be part of the regular budget, even though that we do know that there's going to be a carryover. We do not project that until we end of the fiscal year, or we do our year-end closing. And when that comes back, there would be a separate line where you see on top of the subtotal carryover from prior year, unallocated, that is where it's going to be. And if the board suggests that they want to distribute it or allocate it to the members, then we would do it that way. Does that answer your question?
Yes and no. I was simply comparing the illustration on item 3 and version 1 in item 5. Are those not the right data points? So looking at those, then it's an 11% increase overall. And I see that not all of it is coming from the increases in stipends, but I just want to make sure I'm comparing the right data points. And it does not include the 3 line items for the unallocated, it looks like.
Which on the first?
The 21-22 no
Yes.
longer includes that line item. So even though we haven't taken action on that, this proposed 21-22 is assuming that those 3 line items will be redirected to the member districts. I guess that was my question also.
Can you repeat again? I'm sorry, I am not
So
from the agenda item number
3 and
number
5. Yeah.
Okay, 3 and 5.
Yes.
So your inquiry is the increase from 216,
212 to 236,000, right?
yeah, 212. It's 216.
That's the budget.
Yes.
Okay.
So
But your estimates
216 versus the 236.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
I'm seeing 212, but that's okay. So is that correct then? Those are the 2. So if we take those number, it's an 11% increase overall to the AU budget.
Yes.
Okay. And that with the assumption that the $70,000 for the 3 member districts are going to be redirected to the districts, because I don't see them here anymore on the 21-22.
Yes.
Okay.
It will be short. It will be coming after the year-end closing.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
I think though, I would want to make a clarification on that if we looked at what was the projected budget for this last year, it was 240,000, but we only spent 212,000 of that. And partly it was because of different factors, such as there was no travel this year, many conferences people didn't attend. So that number was significant. But if we look, and Robbie, correct me if I'm wrong, if we look at the 2021-22 budget, as opposed to last year of 240, this year we're looking at 236, 645. Is that correct, Robbie?
Can you repeat that again? Sorry.
Sure. If we looked at when we had the 2021 projections for the SELPA, that was a budget, a subtotal of 240,682. But this year, as we project into 21-22, we're looking at 236, 645. So that's actually less than it was from last year.
So if you're going to look at the actual funding, just the funding without the carryover, our funding in 2021 is 216. Because that's the funding. The reason why we have 240 is because of the carryover. And also because so that's one, is the carryover. If you take that out, it's 216. Now I now see the 212 that you're looking Annette, which is the actual expenditures. So, but overall, our funding, if you're going to look at one year to another, 216 for 2021 and for 21-22 is 236. So there is an increase. Yes, and so I just want to make sure that we're following the right numbers for the actual allocation or projected allocation of funding.
I see it now. Thank you for that, Robbie. So 212 does not include what could still happen through the end of the fiscal year. So you're basing it on 216,000.
Yes.
I see.
That's
So
our
overall,
funding.
it's a projected increase of about 9% only. Okay, thank you. I'm following the numbers now.
Do we have any, okay, yeah, Larry?
Thank you very much, Karen. So when we're approving this budget, if that's what we're going to do, it's just like the earlier question. It doesn't mean we're actually allocating these funds. Most of these things will have to come back to this board as agenda items to be actually funded. This is like a budget, so that we are putting this money aside, but we're not necessarily approving it for all these categories.
What I would say, and Robbie, again, please weigh in on this. At this point, you're right, Larry, this is a budget, but that would give Robbie the approval to allocate that amount in each of these categories through the course of next year, unless amended by this group during one of the regional policy board meetings.
I'm having, to go back to Superintendent Kamick's point about the stipends, I would believe that those would have to come to us as a separate agenda item rather than be approved automatically through this budget. I think that just as a matter of course of action, those have to come as separate budget items because they're dealing with salaries. Is that correct?
So it's approving this item, also approving the stipends, or are those coming back as separate items at some point in time?
Yes, and that's exactly what I'm saying. And I'm saying that it's my understanding that they have to come back because they are salary related. Is that correct?
I would say that there's probably a need for an allocation, right? Because if it comes to us and it's not budgeted, but it's going to make it really hard for us to approve, right? So there should be a line item that says, you know, projected salary increases.
Exactly.
But this,
I just want to, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Lisa.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to reiterate that that's exactly what it's doing. It's allocating it so that if we do move forward as agenda item, where will the money come from? Well, it's been allocated in the budget for thus and such.
Okay, do we have any more input or discussion on this? Ariel, did you have a point you wanted to make?
Yeah, yes, I did. Sorry about that. My clarification was around the 18,000 allocated for travel and conference. And you had mentioned, Karen, that that's a significant increase, obviously, from last year with returning back to post-COVID situation. So is there a formula that determines that $18,000? And if so, is that an equitable amount for all member districts?
So for the statewide SELPA organization, the entire organization meets every other month in Sacramento and or in San Diego. And that amount is budgeted to cover expenses related primarily to that.
For
And
each
that-
member districts?
No, it's just for the SELPA director.
Oh.
And that's pretty much been, at least as long as I've known SELPA, for the last 15 years.
Got it. That's a standing item.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. This last year obviously was different because meetings were conducted via Zoom.
Just want to add, in 2019-20, we did spend 12,500 for travel and conference.
All right, so what I am hearing then from the discussion from both Larry and CJ, that maybe we go back and do a little bit more research and justifications regarding the stipend and benefit increases that are reflected on this budget. And as Larry said, that this then would need to be a separate agenda item. I would just like to inform the Regional Policy Board that the $500 increase to the stipend to Bobby and the $500 stipend increase for our accounting director is a relative increase in 5 hours of work and 10 hours of work, respectively, between Robbie and Bobby. And I can let everyone on this call know right now that those two individuals spend far more than that amount of time on the efforts that they've been directing towards the SELPA. And so I think that both of these two increases are extremely warranted. But CJ, if you want me to go back and really kind of document that with more numbers, I'm more than willing to do so and can present that in our fall Regional Policy Board meeting. And certainly then we can have these amounts go back to calendar year July 1st as may be needed.
Karen, thank you. And, you know, it's not, I hope that my intention is not to say that they're not warranted, that they're not deserved. I think you, Karen, as well as everybody else who's supporting the SELPA in their roles are working above and beyond. I think that's the case for our employees in every facet of our LEAs and certainly every facet of the SELPA. My overall concern with approving it in this moment is I would just like to have more discussion, not necessarily about the justification of it, but in terms of, you know, where we're allocating these, because each stipend is different, the percentages in which we're increasing the stipends range anywhere from, you know, just on a rough calculation, 6.5%, 14%, and 11%. And so, you know, I know that percentages when we look at stipends don't translate the same way they do when we talk about our overall collective bargaining. But I think I always want to look at the lens of what's the standard by which we increase the stipend and do we have a mark for that? And so I'd like us to have more conversation about what the increase is. It's really, from my perspective, not about whether or not it's deserved. I think it's absolutely deserved, as it would be for all of our employees in education the past 2 years, and everything that's happened. I just think we may want to have a little more discussion about the percentage rates and how we establish that as a SELPA, so that we have a marker in time and a way to say this is this is a percentage that we've set that aligns, across the increases. So that's really my desire for more conversation on that. And hopefully the team can hear that it's not about whether or not it's deserved. It's just a little more discussion about how we move forward.
Sounds good, CJ. Appreciate that. So what then I will do is I'm going to go back to the regional
I'm
policy.
sorry.
Oh.
Hi, sorry, I had my little virtual hand raised. I just wanted to ask Superintendent Kamek if, given in the spirit of just getting the budgeting process moving and knowing that these actual approvals will have to come before this board for, for the justification and the why, does it make sense that at least those buckets of money are approved? Or you would just feel better if it just waited?
I think as Trustee Sweeney was pointing out, if the budget that we're approving is a budget and before any increase in compensation is operationalized, it has to come back to the Regional Policy Board for discussion, review, and approval, I would be okay with that. I just think that it warrants a little further
Agree.
conversation. So great
Agree
question.
on the
Thank you.
actual approvals. Yep. Thank you.
So what I'm then pulling up right now is the administrative unit operating budget without the increases noted on the budget. So this would be a projected budget for 21-22 without those increases listed on here. And as you can see, the subtotal is still the same, 188,622,000. So this then could be the budget that we vote on presently. And as CJ has noted, we will go back and do more diligence regarding the changes and then present those as a specific item in the fall Regional Policy Board meeting.
Karen, just one clarification.
Mhm.
This 21-22 budget includes the amount for the stipends, right? They're already assuming them.
Yes.
But approving the allocation doesn't necessarily mean those increases in stipends, because those still have to come back. So I think for process and purpose of budgeting, because these have to be established in the financial system, we can move forward and take action on the proposed budget. Is that what I'm hearing? Because there could be more conversations on the actual stipends increases that could come back to this board, but nothing, but taking action on this can be done in this meeting. As long as we can then, you then can bring back to us once there can be more conversations to be had on the other line items for the stipends, just to be able to move forward with this process and for staff to be able to do what they need to do on the budgeting side of things.
Right. So under this line item in the agenda are number 5 are 2 operating budget proposals. The first is basically the same as last year without changes in it. And then the second reflects the possible changes for director, clerical support, and accounting director. My understanding would be that if the group were to approve the second budget that reflects the stipend increases, those stipends start getting paid out in the new fiscal year. So my hearing from Larry and CJ at this point is, again, not an exception to possibly those increases, but before we approve that within the budget, that we have some more data to just kind of clarify why those percentages were selected and, at what, again, a little bit more rationale and data around those projected increases.
So you'd be tabling this item then?
Well, I think at this point, what we would need to do is get a vote on that we approve the operating budget without the stipends, and that we then go back and reintroduce this budget in the fall with the stipends and a possible retroactive increase from July 1st, 2021. Does that sound right, CJ?
Well, Trustee Sweeney, I think you had your hand up. I mean, I think it's really about how we operationalize it after the approval of the budget.
I agree. I would go ahead and make a motion to approve the budget as we first received it, knowing that if we do make the adjustments, as Superintendent Cameron was talking about, they can be retroactive to July 1. And that way it allocates the funds if we go forward, and it lessens the confusion as we go forward also for the buckets of money that we've heard. I think it's the cleanest, fastest, and most transparent way and accountable way to make this work. And we know it's going to come back as an agenda item anyway, so it should assuage anyone's concerns.
Great. Okay, thank you, Trustee Sweeney, for clarifying that. Robbie, do you have any other discussion or information to add at this point?
No, either version we can do in our processing of budget. So, so what I'm hearing is that there's going to be a separate agenda item for the stipend increases, and then there's going to be another agenda item with the status of the operating budget.
This is Larry. I would, if I was making a motion, it would be to approve the original operational budget that came with the meeting minutes, and then the actual stipends would come to us for consideration. If we didn't approve this budget and we wanted to go forward with these proposed stipends, then we would have a more complex situation of finding where it's going to be funded from. So we can always, it's easier to take money away. I don't mean I'm intending to take money away, than is to put money back in.
Yes,
I second.
Well, my motion wasn't that long.
Okay. I second whatever Trustee Sweeney said.
Oh my gosh, I haven't heard that. It's probably been 20 years since someone said that, so thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm a little bit confused here. So are we going with the budget that has the stipends at the 45, 3,500, 4,500, or we're going with the budget that's projecting them a little bit higher? We're going with
Projecting them higher.
Okay, all right. Okay, so then that I'm going to go back. That would be this budget here. And Larry, do you mind reiterating your proposal?
I move to approve the operating budget, knowing that the stipends will come back under future agenda item. But as far as the motion, I move to approve.
Okay, great. And do we have a second?
Yes, I did. That's Annette.
Thank you, Annette. Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Do we have any abstentions vocalized? Any nays vocalized? All right, then the operating budget is improved with the condition that we come back in the fall with more data and research and approval of those stipends that are increased. Okay, thank you very much. That moves us into number 6, which is the 21-22 Mission Valley revised allocations. And let's get into that item. Sorry. Robbie, do you mind taking us through, please?
No problem, ma'am. So what's in front for you to you is the projected 21-22 Mission Valley allocation. The assumptions that we use in projecting this is we're using the governor's May revised proposal of 4.05%. I understand that the funded statutory COLA for next year is 5.7%, which they call the mega COLA or something like that. However, for special ed, it is only the 4.05% COLA. ADA is the higher of the current year, the past 2 years that I received from the Mission Valley SELPA members projected ADA from prior year, from uh, for the current year. Proration factor is still at 0%. Special ed property tax is projection is the April 19 letter from ACOE. The grant, federal and state grants, we're using 2021 grant award numbers because that's the most current numbers that we have. And so if you can scroll down, Karen, on the exhibit.
Okay.
So this funding exhibit is the AB 602 exhibit, and you could see that the COLA that we're using is 4.05%. So it's going up from $625 to $650 per ADA. ADA that we're using is uh, last year's because it's much higher than the year before. Do want to let you be aware that for Fremont Unified School District ADA, it's going to go up because COIL, the charter school, is coming back in. So that's why there's that increase for ADA for Fremont Unified School District. For the past 2 years, 1819, no, 1920 and 2021, the charter school, our charter school, left the SELPA.
Robbie, do we know how many students? Was that about 250 students?
Yes, around 270, I believe.
So again, for board members, I know Trustee Sweeney is very well aware of this. Fremont Unified had within it as one of its schools was Circle of Independent Learning, which is a charter school. And that school also has a inordinately higher percentage of students with IEPs in it, partly because families have chosen that because they're able to really individualize the students' learning.
So if you can scroll down some more, we can go to the summary. So section I is the apportionment summary. $29.1 million is the um, funding entitlement plus the program specialist of 857, low incidence 945, out of home care 63, a total of $30.9 million. So if you can scroll down some more to the distribution exhibit. And here, again, the base supplement, even though we're funded by prior or the highest of the current or in past 2 years, we're using the current year for the distribution of it. And you would see here on number line section 1, the change, there's a 0.052% increase for Fremont. That's basically more because of COIL. New Haven is a decrease of 4.13%. Newark, they're projecting the same ADA. The regionalized services policy or regionalized services and program specialists. I know, Annette, you mentioned about the funding for the AU, and this is where it is being broken down. The program specialists, district accounts, and regionalized services. The regionalized services, that is the budget for the AU. It's basically whatever is left based on what was decided a long time ago, how much is going to be allocated for program specialists, and the distribution for the district accounts. And just want to let you know also, this district accounts is already part of the distribution which is part of the AB 602 total. Then we have the low incidence, and just like I mentioned earlier in error, the pupil count that I'm using for 21-22 is the December 2019 number. And it should be the December 2020 number. And I would get that from Karen and this will be updated when the next RPB meeting.
But Robbie, I just want to interject for a second because I think it's really important. The numbers that Robbie has just shown you are based on an ADA that is actually lower. And if we look at our AB 602 total there, we have that amount of 30,936,000 for the 21-22 school year. And if we went back and looked at 2021, the total apportionment was 30,135,000. So we're looking at an increase of about $800,000 in our special ed budget. Now we know that each of our budgets is in excess into contributions to our gen ed fund in the millions, but at least we are seeing an increase in our special ed funding, even despite declining enrollment. So, you know, for what it's worth, the legislatures are at least seeing that more money needs to be given to special ed to cover the expenses that each of the district is allocating.
And then section 6 to section 18 are just different federal, state, and local grants, and we're assuming the numbers from prior year grant in projecting for 21-22. And that ends my report. Does anybody have any question?
Okay, thank you very much, Robbie, on that one. If there are no questions, may I please get a motion to approve the allocations for 21-22?
Move to approve.
And that was Annette.
Yes.
Thank you. And do I have a second, please?
This is Ariel. I'll move to second it.
Thank you, Ariel. All right, we have a motion to approve the 21-22 Mission Valley SELPA revised allocation. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. And do we have any abstentions? Please indicate by voicing. And if we have any nays, please indicate by voicing. And the motion is approved unanimously. As with the end of the year, we have also our annual service budget and our annual service plans to approve from our regional policy board. Let's see, let's go ahead and begin with our annual service budget. And Robbie, do you mind also going through our special education revenue by source?
Yes. So the special ed annual budget is composed of course, our funding and our expenditures. So most of these numbers came from our exhibit, the one that we just presented to you for the 21-22 fiscal year. Other revenues would include contribution um, to special ed, and what we did is or what I did is I actually contacted the 3 SELPA members and asked them, hey, can you confirm the numbers that you're going to fund? And that is what I got from them. And I put them on this annual budget. Some of them have a different number what they project that I projected, but that is because of I gave them a draft for their proposal because data that they need to have it around uh, April to propose their budget to by end of June. However, so I have to propose a number to them, and they use their own number sometimes. And sometimes they do use our number or the projection that I'm providing to you. So you would see here our assembly, our AB 602 funding is 30.9, which it is similar to the funding that we receive or that you approve. AB 602 property taxes, there was some differences on how numbers came to me, because one of them is it was a slight lower number that they provided to me, but I have to use what the SELPA members use in their proposed 21-22 budget. Federal idea, Part B, Part C, those are the federal grants, and then the state funds, um, and state mental health. Those are some of the budgets that they have provided. If you can scroll down, so on D3, they mention what other grants that or what other funding that we put on other revenue. So we included the workability, and we included the contribution. So overall contribution is 74 million dollars for the three SELPA members. Um, can you scroll down some more? And now, this is the budget that the SELPA provided to me. So 46 million or 37.58% is salaries. For certificated classified is 27 million dollars, and then the total expenditures is 122 million dollars.
And if we look at that, Robbie, we can see that clearly 80% is strictly salaries for our classified, certificated, and benefits.
Yes. Thank you for stating that. Scroll down some more, ma'am.
Can I also say something? You know, one of the things Karen and I discussed as well is that if you look at our non-public school and non-public agency costs, that although is not directly salary, that is a result of not being able to hire or serve kids internally. And so that is also people essentially. So that, you know, that would make that rate even higher if you look at it from that point of view. Just, I mean, like everywhere, we're by people, not stuff.
And if you can scroll up, Karen, I can show you where that line item would be for the non-public schools. So you would see that in Object Code 5000, Services and Operations. So a big bulk of the $19.4 million or 15.78% is where the non-public schools would be.
And I appreciate Robbie and Sarah alerting our trustees and board members and superintendents to that amount. So that would include students that are in non-public schools. It also, as Sarah has alluded to, all the costs associated that we have with non-public agencies. And I know Fremont has a significant number of speech language pathologists or a PT or some of the other personnel that we're required to have then would have been under that 19 million.
So if you scroll down some more, ma'am. So this is just a breakdown of what revenue sources for special ed is. It's just saying what is state, how much is federal, and how much is local. And this is the local plan of expenditures. Again, um, with the SELPA. So this is where how much are we spending for regular classroom provided with students with disabilities. So $2.2 million that is provided, that mostly these are salaries, instructional aids, and then total projected expenditures for students with low incident disabilities, $945,000. This is the $945,000 that Annette did mention earlier of the or mention about the significant increase in low incidence.
Okay. The attachments here are different certifications, and it's not necessarily going to show any particular budget amounts, but that it notes that it's the 3 districts that are involved in this budget: Fremont, Newark, and New Haven.
Oh, Karen, it does show the different how the SELPA members budgeted for it. If you scroll down some more, so the total of this is here, where mentioned to you on the other main report of how much is the whole SELPA is spending, and this is where it's broken down, the revenues and the expenditures.
And I apologize for the orientation of this slide.
Yeah, this is new for this year. Last year, it didn't have it. Or in 2021 annual budget plan, they didn't have this way. And that ends the annual budget plan.
So as you can see, the degree of detail that Robbie has been working on getting these figures presented in this budget to be able to present to you. Fran, Jan, and Sarah and I participated in a public hearing the hour before this regional policy board meeting. And we actually did not have any other input on the annual service budget. Is there any questions right now from from the regional policy board? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the annual budget plan?
This is Larry, move to approve.
Thank you, Larry. And do I have a second?
This is CJ, I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the annual service budget. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. Okay, and do we have any abstentions? Please voice those. Okay, and do we have any nays? All right, then the motion passes to approve our annual service budget. I appreciate everyone staying with us today. I know that we have a lot on our agenda as related to a lot of the financial plans related to the district. What I'm going to be reviewing right now in item number 8 is our annual service plan. And what the annual service plan is a statement that we provide to California Department of Ed that says, as a SELPA, what are the services that we are providing to our students in the district with IEPs? And so listed within this plan, if you've had a chance to review it, are all the services provided to students, potentially provided to students with IEPs based on their need. So it begins with specialized academic instruction and a description of what that is. We provide family training and counseling to our infants, 0 to 3. And I'll preface this by saying, you know, it's important to remind everyone that the SELPA provides services to students 0 age, from the minute they're born, all the way till age 22. And certainly for our 0 to 3 population, the district or the SELPAs provide services to students that are deaf, blind, and orthopedically impaired. And then our services to age 3 to 22 are the rest of these, all listed below. Some services we have not provided this last year include medical services or nutrition services for our 0 to 3 population, only because at this point we did not have a individualized family service plan that required those services to the child based on assessed needs. As we go through the plan, of which there's 13 pages, you can see intensive individual instruction. We have our adaptive PE, all the services that could potentially be listed on an IEP with a description of what those services are. All of the services that you see listed here, individual counseling, These are all required by IDEA. Interpreter, audiological, specialized vision. Okay, I don't know if there's anything else that our directors would like to add on our, in terms of the annual service plan. The thing that's important to note is that any of these services could be provided at any of our K-12 schools based on the assessed needs of the student. Okay. If there's no further discussion, I'm wondering if I could please get a proposal to approve the annual service plan.
This is Ariel. I'll motion to approve.
Thank you, Ariel. Do we have a second?
This is Larry. I'll second.
Thank you, Larry. So Ariel has made the motion that we approve our annual service plan for the Mission Valley SELPA. It's seconded by Larry. Well, all those in favor of this motion, please indicate by raising your hand. Great. And do we have any abstentions? And any nays? All right, it looks like our motion then is approved for our annual service plan. Okay. I'm going to go back and find our agenda for today for the Regional Policy Board. Close out some of these budgets. That's our public hearing. We'll go into that. Sorry about that. Okay. Next on our agenda is going to be item number 9, and that is the monitoring activities that our SELPA is engaged in. And each of the respected districts has developed a special education plan. I'll go back here. The special education plans from the 1920 school year are going to be continued into the 21-22 school year. So all those plans in which each of the districts were found to be needing, and we've gone over those in all of our previous regional policy board meetings, those plans are going to continue. I'm not sure if Sarah or Jan or Fran would like to speak to anything that they're working on. I know that one of the areas both Fremont and Newark were working on is the over-identification of Hispanic students with being identified as specific learning disability. So, and there were all 3 districts, I believe, were working on decreasing the numbers of special education students that weren't spending a significant amount of time in gen ed programs. So is there anything else that you guys as directors would like to talk about in terms of continuing your special education plans?
No, actually, I would just want to say that New Haven has managed to get out of looking at the least restrictive environment, which is how we serve our kids in our general ed. So I'm really proud of that, with the exception of our preschool. I also am really pleased to report that we're adding on an inclusion preschool program for next year. So that's some very exciting progress. For our CSAs, we continue to be disproportionate, not for our Hispanic, but for our African-American populations.
I'd just add to that as well, that, Newark Unified School District will be working with the Santa Clara County Office of Education Inclusion Collaborative for the upcoming school year and looking at universal design for learning, full access for students with special needs throughout the school system. And that's something that we'll be working with principals with, and also school sites, and hopefully piloting an inclusive practice at one of our schools for the upcoming school year. So we're very excited at that as well.
Yes, and in Fremont, we're very fortunate to be opening the RICS campus next year for our early intervention, which will allow us to expand our state preschool program. And as a result, utilize those classes to mainstream our special education students on the RICS campus. So we're super excited about that. We are still in SIGDIS for the same areas. So we have convened a stakeholder group and are continuing that work. This summer, we will be hiring an MTSS coordinator or program manager to oversee the implementation of the CSACE in 21-22, and then of course 22-23. So things are moving along nicely, and we feel very positive about our ability to use the plan that the stakeholder group and the leadership team developed to show improvement.
Thank you, guys. And I just want to point out that when districts continue to be identified for the comprehensive coordinated early intervening plan, there's a budget requirement that 15% of the special ed budget then be redirected back to general ed to address the factors that contribute to that over-identification or that disproportionate findings. So at this point, both Sarah and Fran are engaged in utilizing those budgets to address the disproportionate issues. Number 11 is our Transition Partnership Program. And as you guys know, the Transition Partnership Program is headed up by Lorraine Niera as a coordinator, and she has 5 coaches that work with her. These 5 coaches and Lorraine serve all our high school programs throughout all 3 districts. This year, they, like many of our students and teachers, have had a very steep learning curve, expanding their services to include Zoom, Nearpod, Kahoot, Google Classroom, but they've presented all sorts of engaging workshops and resources for over 200 students in the 11th and 12th grade, focusing on their transition services, whether that be to career education or post-secondary educational outcomes for them. So included in here is a very detailed update on what they've actually done, as well as the resources that they've provided to our seniors, including employee workshops where we've coordinated with organizations within Fremont and the area, Newark and New Haven as well, including Amazon, American Tires, In-N-Out, the Warriors, Kaiser, Aloni. We had Tesla, as well as Tri-City Recycling. So again, really working to connect our juniors and seniors with their post-secondary plans and creating that seamless transition for them. Number 10 information item. We've discussed this at the last Regional Policy Board meeting, but California School for the Deaf and the Mission Valley SELPA have traditionally engaged in a memorandum of understanding, and the grant money that the districts had received for the services had been given to California School for the Deaf for them to administer a program serving the needs of our low incidence students identified as deaf. This last year, the SELPA districts have discussed not engaging in that memorandum of understanding for the 21-22 school year. The districts most definitely want to continue a collaborative association with California School for the Deaf. Many of our students will still be utilizing services for California School for the Deaf. The major change is that the SELPA, and Fremont is the administrative unit that the SELPA engages with, the SELPA team will be doing the assessment and then inviting individuals in for making a recommendation for service. This has been an issue that's been controversial. CSD wanted very much to continue the previous memorandum of understanding. The SELPA districts have weighed in that they wanted to actually have more input regarding the assessment and the offer of service. I think that we may have some individuals, maybe CJ and Fran, who may be wanting to weigh in and give a little bit more information around this process and where we are. So CJ or Fran, would you like to comment on this item?
CJ, did you want to, or did you want me to speak to it?
Go ahead, Fran. You can summarize from the last meeting. Thank you. And I think Karen has described it well.
Yes, yes. So Karen captured that. We have so much respect for our partners with CSD. We did find that over the past couple of years, we've seen a decline in the number of student referrals that we are getting. And so in terms of the $211,000 that we typically would cede to CSD, we're not sure if we would need to do that at this point. However, we would like to utilize the CSD program on a case-by-case basis as those students are referred to us either through their pediatrician or regional center. So at this point, we won't be continuing the MOU, but we do have a process in place, of course, for working with CSD as soon as we get those referrals. So that will involve our intake coordinator, Allison, receiving those student referrals through Child Find. Following that, she will complete the paperwork to determine eligibility for those students and just the basic paperwork that we do for all intake. At that point, they will hold an IFSP meeting, and that will include California School for the Deaf as a resource to the parents and the family, to give them access to a deaf adult, to give them access to that information that CSD can provide. We also provide the parents with other information in the event that they are not seeing the bilingual model as the appropriate model for their family. We also provide to them information around total communication and the and other models that may be appropriate for their family to pursue for their child.
I think another important note is that now how the Mission Valley SELPA would contract and interact with California School for the Deaf is also consistent with any other Bay Area SELPA. So if it was mid Alameda County, North Region, et cetera. So we will be collaborating with them similarly as any other district in the Bay Area. I think as both Fran has noted and CJ knows as well, we value tremendously the services that California School for the Deaf has to offer. And those include, as Fran said, a variety of services, including mentoring, ASL classes for our families, play groups, as well as a whole host of other kinds of information series regarding supporting our students with varying hearing levels.
And also, since we're on the topic and it's on the agenda, I just wanted to clarify for the general public that there were some parents who spoke at a Fremont Unified Board meeting indicating that they thought we were severing ties with CSD. Nothing could be further from the truth. We continued to have 55 students who are placed at CSD, who are students in our district. So we value our partnership with CSD. We continue to refer students to them. This MOU is specific to the infant toddler program, and I think that's really important to clarify for the general public who maybe misunderstood what was happening.
Thank you, Fran. And I think that that there is actual law that would indicate for our age 3 to 22 year population for any student that is identified with a different hearing level, that the district is obligated to make sure that our families are aware of the services California School for the Deaf has to offer. Okay. And I apologize for going through the agenda. I kind of, I think, transposed items 10 and 11. But if we move on to then item number 12, unless there's any other questions. Okay. Item number 12, from the state SELPA, there's a hot link for the state SELPA finance report, which goes into detail of what's happening around special education funding and what's happening statewide in terms of our budget. I was able to contact our California Fiscal Services Advisory Board, and on these historic funding points that are noted beyond here, a 4.05 cost of living adjustment, the 260 million increase to 602, 500 million for learning recovery, 500 million for early inclusive grant settings, 20 million for supporting inclusive practices. As you can see, all these, another 20 million for one-time COVID effects. These, all these increases are still before the legislature right now. And so we are still awaiting the outcome. So much to, I think, CJ's point and Robbie's, we may be having a very, or at least a somewhat modified budget outcome once the legislature finally approves the budget for the 21-22 school year. But I have to say that the legislature has clearly made a commitment towards putting more money towards education for the next school year. Okay. On number 13, we are looking forward to coordinating back with our Special Olympics counterparts for the 21-22 school year. A Special Olympics coordinator has been, the position's been posted on EdJoin. Fran, Jan, and Sarah and I will look towards interviewing individuals for that position and hope to have someone in before the start of the school year next year. It looks like the events that we will have will be a fall event of soccer, a spring event for track and field, and we will also be collaborating with our preschool programs as well as through the year promoting our general Special Olympics events. So we're really excited for that collaboration to continue. For the 21-22 school year, we're proposing the following dates for our regional policy board meetings. They will stay on Tuesday mornings from 9 to 11, and we have the 4 dates proposed there. Our special education directors will continue to meet from 1 to 2:30 on those dates that are listed. Our community advisory committee based on parents and, gen ed members will continue to, will meet on the dates projected there. And we are looking to hold our CAC events on dates to be determined as we move into that school year. We are looking to have CAC parent involvement in establishing those dates and topics. We are currently having a needs assessment done through our CAC newsletter, which will hopefully advise our SELPA as to what events will be of value to our parents. This last year, as we noted in our last meeting, we had the best attended events that we've had since I've been involved with SELPA on a variety of topics, including IEPs, transition, behavior management, mental health. So hopefully those are some of the topics we'll continue to address next year. As our SELPA priorities for 21-22, of course, we'll be focusing on our compliance and monitoring activities, our shared programs of the transition program, infant services, Special Olympics. We do have memorandums of understanding with Regional Center, California Children's Services, Alameda County Office of Ed. We as a SELPA are involved, of course, with our Community Advisory Committee, the Bay Area Collaborative, which works on our master contracts as well as our rates with our non-public schools. We collaborate with Alameda County SELPA directors, and we have a variety of priorities planned for staff training and support for next year, including alternative dispute resolution, Sonde Systems. The directors and I are working on that. We're looking forward to some of the challenges that we'll have next year, but also hopefully having a little bit more resources with which to work with. Are there any other director updates that you guys would like to add, Sarah, Jan, or Fran?
Well, I'm sitting here at Olivera Elementary School where we have 200 students in person. It's been so wonderful to see them back on campus for extended school year. Today was very smooth. Yesterday, a couple bumps, couple things we had forgotten about because it's been so long since we've been in person, but today it was smooth sailing. So I got to give a heads up to my ESY principals, Jeff Downing, Glennis Mason, and John Honerkamp over at Kennedy. It's just been exhilarating to see students. And so that's why we're all in this business, so to speak. And so I'm just so excited that they're back on campus and that they all came back for the second day. So parents were more nervous than the students. So that was good news. Other than that, we're looking forward to a full reopening in August. Staff is excited to be coming back. The students, of course, are looking forward to coming back. And of course, our parent population is very grateful to all the hard work that our teachers did during distance learning, because that was a challenge in and of itself, but a lot of community support for our amazing teachers. And hopefully life will be getting back to normal, whatever normal looks like. So we graduated 280 seniors last week or 2 weeks ago, who are now moving on with their lives, either in our transition programs or into vocational fields or to college. So that's exciting as well. And it was fun to see those graduation ceremonies happen in person as well. So that's about it for Fremont.
Thank you, Fran.
So Newark had what an extraordinary year from everyone, right? And really showed a lot of resilience from our school community, our staff, going from in-person to virtual and navigating in-person assessments, to say the very least. Newark Unified School District opened in-person in the spring. Students were joyful, as was staff, and we started our extended school year program last week. And once again, very excited students and staff alike. It was great to see students on campus and being so excited about getting into the classroom with a really exceptional turnout as well. For the upcoming school year, we're really looking forward to supporting our teachers and students alike. We have a literacy reading program adoption and also a math adoption intervention program. We're really going to be working tirelessly on the multi-tier system support, which includes the academic, social, emotional learning and behavioural support for our students moving forward. So really looking forward to a very exciting year and back to some sense of normalcy. Thank you.
I think, Jan, that particularly having robust and strong multi-tiered systems of support is going to be critical as we begin our 21-22 school year, because we know our students are going to come back to us with a variety of levels, and we want to be able to accept them where they are and advance their learning as is appropriate. Sarah.
Yeah, so we are also running quite the summer operation. We're on day 7. It's looking good. It's interesting to see schools at full or pretty close to full capacity. Kids are doing great with masks. Teachers have, really, after the first day, the anxiety really went down. So we're pleased that we're running both ESY and a summer program. For the fall, we're really, the CSACE is really driving a lot of the work that we're doing. We're full on with MTSS. We've created a district-wide framework that we're then now focused on running out to the sites, providing interventions at the general ed level with our CSACE money in order to prevent that over-identification of special education, and adding that second inclusion class in partnership with Kidango, I think are some really big highlights for us as we come in. And just like, because there was no other appropriate time to share, I know that there's some bills and budget line items from the state coming in for things like compensatory education. And so I think the three of us are all going to be really thinking about how do we provide those services for kids, and in framing through learning loss and really building on those assets rather than a single one-for-one comp ed litigious situation. And so I think that is also work that you can expect to hear more from us. And hopefully there'll be a budget item at the state level for us to complete that work.
So I think just to build on what Sarah said, that we really do want to spend next year focusing again proactively on addressing some of our learning loss needs that may or may not have occurred, rather than having to engage in a variety of individual settlements, which are going to be as helpful overall to our students as proactively providing those services. So thanks, Sarah, for mentioning that. Number 17, public comment on non-agenda items. As I look, we do not have anything listed there. Are there any other items from our board which would like to be presented at this time? Michael?
Yes, this goes with the comment or the somebody mentioned about the charters opting out of our SELPA. And so just based on data of charters, practices, the pushing out, the opting out of our exceptional students with special needs. And I've seen this firsthand. I was in the biggest I was in Los Angeles for 15 years, where we have the biggest charter population, and collecting the money, and after norm days, sending them back to the classroom. But my question is, does this charter school bank that money by opting out of the SELPA? And what is the benefit of opting out of the SELPA? Does it mean less accountability? So what I would like to see from our board is a resolution or policy not condoning these practices. That's it.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate you bringing in that perspective too. At this point, when Robbie was talking about the SELPA or the charter school leaving, the charter school left, Fremont left the SELPA. So at that point, when they left, no other money had been designated to them. Now that they are coming back into the SELPA as a school within Fremont Unified School District, they actually receive the same services that would be afforded to any other school. So typically their kids are getting resource specialist services, speech language services, counseling, just like any other school within Fremont Unified. So that is now, by having those students return to the district gets an increased ADA, and our special ed budget increases by those number of students that come back into the district.
Can I follow up? So we're going to have a representative at the next SELPA meeting from their charter school. Is that correct?
Actually, CJ would be the superintendent of that school, so he certainly could represent Coyle.
Additionally, when that charter school left Fremont Unified, they did go to another SELPA. So it wasn't that they were not under a SELPA. They went to El Dorado County.
I would add, in terms of, future conversations, while the SELPA is, in a sense, a part of Fremont Unified, it's to say that it's a unique arrangement is probably pretty accurate. And it long predates my arrival in Fremont, but we certainly can explore a conversation around the program and its implications more thoroughly. It's an interesting existence in the sense that they are our union teachers from FUTA that are teaching at Coyle as the charter, which isn't always the case, but the charter has its own oversight. And so certainly can continue to explore how the relationship exists.
And you're right, CJ, that relationship has kind of changed over the years, and that's depending on how that, again, how that charter has engaged with our district or with Fremont regarding the reciprocation of services. Okay, thank you, Michael, for the comment. Any other items from the board? Okay, on number 19 is our thought for the day. And I think that in this year that we spend a lot of time worrying whether we are giving our students the education that they need, worrying about how we open back up, worrying about what resources that we have. And so my hope, and as also echoed by Winston Churchill in this quote, that our worrying becomes our advanced thinking and planning. And I hear that very clearly from our special ed directors as they're engaged in thinking and planning with their staffs. And already as our ESYs are successfully opening back up, I can see that also happening in September or August and September when all of our students return. So I want to definitely thank our special ed directors and by extension, all of their staff for the incredible work that they've done this year and in planning for getting back next year. Without further ado, then, I will make a note that our next scheduled Regional Policy Board meeting will be November 2nd at 9 o'clock. And unless there's anything else from our members that are attending today or the public, we will adjourn at 10:51. All right. I want to thank everyone again for participating today. Have a wonderful summer and look forward to seeing everyone back in the fall.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you,
Karen. Bye, everybody.